So, I just want us to take a deep breath for being here. Let us join together and say, there is only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe. God, the good, the omnipotent. Well, Russ, I'm gonna let you just join us, and I saw this last weekend. I love this. Isn't that nice? So cute.
There we go. Good morning.
Good morning.
Travis, would you go turn my phone, please? Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to stand here. Let's try that. Try a little more. A little more. Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah. All right. So let's do this. Just turn this a little more.
Okay.
And get me up here a little. Let's see if that helps.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, y'all are going to see the side of my head.
But he's on camera.
So, thank y'all. Appreciate y'all being here. And I want to acknowledge today, y'all know that this community is here because of you. Without you, there would be no Unity of Little Rock. And I want you to acknowledge that you're an integral, important, vital part of this community. And that your presence brings an energy. You know, there's an old saying for certain traditions is that we have a soul star. Some of us would call that a chakra, but nonetheless, they call it a soul star. And that soul star is where we house all the essence of our divinity. And then when different soul stars come together in a group, they create a separate soul star that holds the whole group. So I'm just offering that for you to recognize that when you bring you're bringing your energy, but your energy unites and aligns and creates more than the individual parts. And that you are that vital contributing aspect of Unity of Little Rock. And I want to acknowledge too that for many of you, you were here during the great COVID days, and that being here might have been online is how you were here, but you still nonetheless connected with and brought your energy still to this community. And your reason that we can meet today. Because without you, this community potentially wouldn't be here. Because there are many unities around the world that didn't make it through those few years of COVID. I also want to acknowledge Jeannie McGehee, Travis Wiley, Linda Strickland, who, as part of the board, were the ones that held this consciousness for this community. And they too were absolutely vital. And the work they did is another reason why we're here this morning. The ability for us to be here this morning. So I want to acknowledge that. I want to acknowledge too that Unity of Little Rock is sacred community. It's sacred space. That wherever two or more are gathered, the I am is there, the divine is experienced here. And that this is sacred space. And that when you step into these doors, you're stepping into a sacred contract, if you will, because you're stepping into a place that is claiming that it's a spiritual community. It's announcing it to the world. And announcing it to the world, we're also saying that this is the place that spiritual transformation takes place. And spiritual transformation isn't always pretty. So, yes, there is love and compassion and caring and comfort and joy and laughter that takes place here. But there's also pain and struggle and strife because we're human and we bring that humanness here. So we're acknowledging that this is divine space. I'm going to invite you to join me in prayer. Close your eyes if you want, keep them wide open if you want, whatever makes you comfortable. Because we're coming together to know that there's one power and one presence in the universe. One power, one presence. Here, now. And that all that is this one power and one presence. We cannot be separate from it. It cannot be escaped from. The one power and one presence infuses and exists as every molecule and particle in the universe. Thus, that means that we are that one power and one source. That divine nature is our nature. And that with each breath, we, as this image said, we're the universe pretending to be, insert your name here, pretending to be this beautiful, unique expression. And in that expression, all that potential, that infinite potential, is our infinite potential. So whatever it is that you claim for your life, whether it's strength, whether it's joy, whether it's health, whether it's love, whether it's companionship, whether it's knowledge, wisdom, whatever it may be in your life, that you are already, because you are that infinite potential. You are the universe in expression. So knowing that, today we give thanks. We are grateful that we have a community to come to. We're grateful that we have a community to call family. We're grateful that we can recognize the divine alive and living in us as us. And with that, we say, and so it is.
And so
Thank you.
So it is.
Thank you. Amen. I'm going to play a little music for us. Because I wanted to share today, I started thinking about, fear, the fear that permeates our lives so often, and what our greatest fear is. And I went on a little trip up to Kentucky to see family, to see Uncle Roger. Uncle Roger has been a movie critic, but a theater actor for decades. And he was doing a one-man show. And I went up there and I got to spend time with Uncle Roger, who was just this loving, kind, compassionate being that you just have a good time, whether he's opening his mouth or not. He's just one of those people that you just love being with him. And being during my dinners and drinks and the things that we were enjoying with each other, he shared, how nervous he was up to doing this 90-minute performance, because it was a one-man show. So just him, actually a performance that he created. But just the nervousness, his concern about, am I going to do good enough? But also he shared, during the performance that he botched lines and how much that affected him during the performance. Of course, me as an audience member, I never saw any botched lines.
Yes.
I never recognized any of that. So as I listened to him, he's sharing his fears, his concerns. In some ways, those fears that we all have about not enough, that we in some way are not enough. We're not pretty enough, we're not smart enough, we're not strong enough, we're not bold enough, we're not wealthy enough, we're not enough, we're not enough, we're not enough. However we define it in our life. But what I noticed in his performance was I didn't see any of that fear, any of that darkness that we can fall into. I saw him in his light, because he was a man sharing his passion, his creativity. And so it wasn't just his expertise that I saw, but literally because he was accessing that creative nature within him, that passion that all of us have, he was shining forth, and I could see that light. And it made me start thinking about how our fears and how our lights may play a game together. And I've got a clip for you here. This is a movie clip. It's from Coach Carter. And if you don't know that movie, Coach Carter is basically working with a high school basketball team. And not only is he trying to help them excel on the court, but he's trying to help them excel in school and in life. So we're picking it up right after the powers that be have objected to some of this.
So they can cut the chain off the door, but they can't make us play.
We've decided we're gonna finish what you started, sir.
Yeah, so leave us be, coach. We got shit to do, sir. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were all meant to shine as children do. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Sir, I just want to say thank you. You saved my life.
Thank you, sir. All of it.
My favorite part of the movie.
So that quote is from Marianne Williamson, actually, it's the poem. It's attributed often to Nelson Mandela because he used it and actually probably brought it into our consciousness. But Marianne Williamson wrote that poem. And to me, it's a great exploration that what we struggle with in life, the fears that we have, that which we call dark in our life, maybe that's not really our great fears. Our greatest is that we know a truth about ourselves down on a deep core level. The truth is that we're light, and that we're worried that maybe if we shine a little too bright, the world won't welcome us. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, writes that light is a symbol of intelligence, that it's the illumination of the spirit that is resident within us. And that when Jesus Christ said that I am the light of the world, he was basically saying that he was the expresser of truth in all aspects. And that we have that same light, thus we have that same potential of being the expressors of the truth in all its aspects. There's a story too about Jesus Christ. It's in the Gospels of the Christian Bible. It's in Matthew chapter 14. And it's a story. I don't know whether it's factual or not. We don't really have a way of knowing whether the story actually happened the way it is. And that's not important. What's important is what we take away from that story. So whether it's fact or fable, is what do we do with it? What do we take away? But the story, I'm joining the story where Jesus is with the multitudes. He's with the 5,000. That's 5,000, not including the women and children that are there. And it comes time for them to eat. And Jesus tells the disciples to go buy some bread. And the disciples go, that would take 8 months' salary, even if we could find somebody that had that much bread. All we've got here is this one boy that has 5 loaves of barley bread and 2 small fish. Jesus says, bring it here. And after they eat, they collect all the pieces of bread, and it fills 12 baskets because they have that much abundance. So they've experienced a miracle, this expression of the divine here in this experience. And Jesus, as he's dismissing the people, he tells his disciples, because they're on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he tells the disciples, go get in the boat, cross over to Capernaum, and basically prepare the way. And Jesus went up onto the mount, as he often did, to be in solitude, to return to the silence. While the disciples are out in the boat on the Sea of Galilee, a storm comes up. And they're struggling all night in the storm because the wind's against them, and they're rowing to the other side. And Jesus comes down off the mount and walks out upon the water. And as he gets to the boat, the disciples see him and they're frightened because they think he's a ghost, an apparition. And he tells them, don't be afraid. It is I. And Peter, one of the disciples, goes, hey, well, if that's you, then command me to come out there with you. And Jesus says, come. And Peter steps out and walks on the water. Then he notices what?
What he was doing.
Walking on the water.
He notices the storm, actually.
Oh, okay.
Notices the waves and the wind and the storm that's happening, and he starts to sink and he gets frightened.
Yeah.
And he calls out for help. Jesus Christ takes his hand and they crawl back into the boat. And when they get back in the boat, the storm calms.
Wow.
To me, this is a great story.
Yes.
Because these disciples have experienced the divine in action. They've seen it feed the multitudes. Multitudes metaphysically means those that are seekers of the truth. So they've been fed, they've been given the bread, the manna in their lives. But they've seen that, and then they get out and they're on the sea, and like so many of us, they're caught up in the storm of life. And water, metaphysically, can represent negativity, our negative thoughts. But here comes Jesus Christ and his full recognition of his divine nature. He does what? He walks above the negativity. And when he gets to the disciples, what do? They think he's not real, that he's an apparition. And how in our lives do we sometimes not accept our divine nature, think it's not real,
Yeah.
think it's an apparition, something over there,
Yeah.
versus embracing it for ourselves. It's Peter who represents faith. He stepped out on faith. And the important part of the story is he walked on water. He stepped above the sea, above the negativity. Yet, being human, he got what? Caught in the storms of life. He got distracted. And when he got distracted, he started getting swallowed by that sea, by the negativity. Yet, when he finally stepped back into the boat, that sea calmed. And the boat metaphysically represents for us that consciousness that we recognize our divine nature. We recognize the aspects of mind which all the disciples represent for us. Like our banners on the wall, where the judgment, strength, wisdom, all those aspects that when we hold those, have that consciousness, then we too sit above the sea, sit above the storm. So, our greatest fear, I think, in life is not those dark days, not that darkness, but our light. But how do we use the darkness? How do we use that which we catch in our everyday life and think that it's that it is fearful. And maybe it's very much fearful and very real. And it's not that we ignore that which is in our life. We're not saying that, oh, you just jump to your light. Well, you are your light, so you can't jump to it because you are it. But the fear that we experience in our life is what I think we use as a great distraction so that we don't have to recognize our divine nature. We don't have to see those miracles in our life and know that in those miracles we do what? Well, miracles are simply our divine being expressed, that we impact other people, that we make a difference in this world. So our fear, to me, often is just taking us somewhere else other than into our light. So I'm going to get y'all to share with me now. What do we utilize that keeps us distracted, that keeps us in that fear, that we could label as darkness? What are those things we do?
Talk about it.
We talk about what? What do we talk about?
We reinforce it when we talk about it. Instead of talking about the positive, we'll talk about the negative and reinforce it to ourselves.
And what are the negative things that we could be talking about?
Whatever your fear issue is.
And what might that be? That's what I'm looking for, what those examples are. How about I give you one? How about going on job interviews? Okay? Because that's the potential coming up for me. And the fear, the negativity is, well, goodness, there's all kinds of younger people. There are people that got more experience. There are people that got more training. There are people better looking than me, more articulate than me. I got a whole list that keeps me distracted, keeps me in my fear side, so that I what? So that I don't stay above the storm, stay above the water, and recognize my light. What other examples do we have?
Well, about the economy, you know, you pay attention to the news and you get caught up in fear. Oh, am I going to have enough to pay my bills or to buy food or to, you know, to get by, strive.
A lack about my ability to provide for myself. So whether that's money, whether it's my food, my housing, my gasoline, whatever it is, that I get caught in with that lack consciousness.
COVID.
COVID, yeah.
It was a big one.
So how in COVID? How was that negative? Give me a little more on that, Betty.
You know, because I wear a mask most of the time because I don't want to get COVID. Even if there's a pill that gets you over it in a couple of weeks, I don't want it, period. So, you know, so I wear a mask and sometimes having a fear that other, you know, I'm around a lot of people who don't wear masks. And so I have a fear that people think I am whatever, weird, overprotective, or criticizing of them, or whatever. But actually, I'm just protecting myself from illness and my health, protecting my very good health.
Yes. So I hear that there's a fear of the unknown. Maybe I will get it, maybe I won't get it. I don't know what's going to unfold here. As well as I know that I believe, let me say it that way, that other people are judging me by whichever side of the fence I stand on. That no matter what side I take up, I fear that other people are judging me in regards to that. What else? What are other examples of that? Yes?
Thinking how we think, where we focus our thoughts, and where we get in that squirrel cage of negativity and keep playing it over and over again, rather than moving our thoughts to a more soulful place where we know that we have peace.
And what's one of the places that you use, Linda, to focus your negativity on? What's an example of that?
A focus of negativity,
Yes.
that humanity, I think in the bigger picture that humanity may not overcome itself to become lighter and brighter and more loving and encompassing of the oneness that we are.
So, can I simplify that and say maybe a fear that we're not going to meet our potential
That could be,
as a humanity.
right.
And what's my part in helping with that? Yes, Judy.
Well, I think fear is probably one of the greatest problems in our country right now for pretty much everyone. And some people are more like that, more fearful than others. But I think it's the root of almost all the problems and all the negativity and all the dissension.
It is fear, yeah.
It's a huge problem.
And so the point is, what? That we got lots of examples. And if we sit here for another hour, I assure you, y'all will
But
keep coming up with examples.
We do have one online. Let's see, Susan, are you unmuted? Yeah,
Hey,
Susan, you had
Susan.
something?
Yes.
Yeah, I have, so one of the things that keeps coming in, penetrating into my world is the state of our climate and the state of world events as far as what's going on with Russia, what's going on with China, are we gonna have a world?
Yeah.
And where do we go? How do you not only protect yourself, but in the events of what's going on? I mean, I think I've said enough on that one.
That's definitely one. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Susan. Yes.
So,
The list of our fears are deep, wide, numerous. And yet, all those things that you heard, are they invalid? No, they're valid. They're valid concerns for us. I'm just suggesting, though, that it's when we stay in those fears that we then conveniently keep ourselves away from our light. And how do we bring ourselves into the light? How do we let this light that's here shine forth? What are ways we go about doing that?
Being open to receive.
Being open to receive. And how do you be open to receive?
Expect the good.
So having an expectation of goodness. So affirming the goodness is part of an expectation of that. What it-
I know it to be so.
So you know it.
I
to
know
be
the
so.
truth. I pause
I know
and
that
pray.
the light is there.
So to me, there's an action step in that knowing is that you're holding in consciousness that clarity, that understanding, that whether you're describing it as you being the light or you being the divine nature or whatever terminology you're using, that's what you're holding in your consciousness. Yes. What other ways do you hold and express that light? Yes, you.
Well, for me personally, prayer and meditation both help tremendously. When the outside world seems to be just chaos and everything, it helps to make me centered. It helps to bring the light of positivity and remember my inner self and how I can share, the light and have hope and so forth. I mean, it's everything to me.
So give me a little more on what that prayer and meditation does for you. What's it give you?
It calms me.
Calms you?
It brings me back to that hope. I mean, I think that so many of the people that are suffering from fear, they never touch into the hope, and it makes them angry, and then they're doing all these things that just make things worse, So for me, it calms me down, it helps me to be centered, it helps me to remember who I am and how maybe I can be a positive help out there.
Thank you. I heard one time a description about hope, that you didn't want to have hope, because hope was looking for something in the future and avoiding being in the moment. But I tweaked that, because hope to me is affirming that which I know I'm not necessarily experiencing in the moment, but know that it's here
That is
nonetheless.
the truth.
And that my hope is helping affirm that and bring my consciousness, my awareness to that instead of whatever other fear distraction that I'm caught up in. So, tie these together for me. Is there an example that you can think of in the world that is a fearful topic, but that there's been light brought to it and there's been a change that's taken place? Can you think of an example of that? Maybe a very individual example. Maybe you think of a person that took something and took action with it. You know, I just read recently of a young man that, being a person of color, that his family sat down with him when he began driving and told him all the things that he's going to need to do as a person of color driving a car and potentially being pulled over by police. And it was a very fear-based story. Legitimate and valid concerns in that fear, but fear. And he looked for, well then, how can I help make a difference in that? And for him, to me, he touched into his light because he got creative. And his creative self was, well, one of the concerns is seeing a driver reach down to the glove box or to the floor. And what are they reaching for when you're an officer from behind?
Yeah.
And he created a wonderful little visor bag packet that you keep all your paperwork in. You have your driver's license, everything you need.
Oh, okay.
So
So you reach out.
that you're reaching up and able to show that.
Right.
It's me. Is that simple? Yes. But to me, that's an example of stepping beyond, here's a problem, here's a fear. Instead of staying in the fear, I have a solution for, or at least a way of helping address that. Does it resolve racism and any other the kind of issues that we're talking about there? Probably not. But it gives us a way of experiencing light in the situation. Yes?
I would say that is the way I feel about my not wanting to get sick with COVID or anything else. So I do everything instead of worrying about it. I just do what I can to be healthy. Eat right, exercise, I wear a mask and close places, tight places, and I take care of myself that way.
So you take action and do the steps, you know, that support you, support your physical body, so that the potential there is I'm connecting more with my light and I can express me fully, not connecting with the fear and thus being swallowed up by the sea and the fear. Yes. Any other examples y'all can think of?
I think our thought processes have a great deal to do with it. How we think each day as it unravels, and do I have enough food? I've got more food there than I can possibly use. I can easily give it to someone else. I know there's others there that may have a problem with that. But in my world, my thoughts, the things that I live with, I'm fine. I am, the vibrations around me that I create are a result of my thoughts.
Right.
Put it that way.
You have your self-responsibility in there.
Yes.
That you're recognizing that you're creating your world.
Create my own reality.
Right.
When I was trying to buy a house, there were a lot of people looking for houses, and there was one I had my eye on, and I, put in my bid, and I was talking to coworkers and said, well, this happened. They're like, oh, well, we knew you wouldn't get it. I said, no, I'm getting that house. And in the end, I did end up getting it. I just said, no, this is mine. This is my house. I refused to believe what everybody else was saying.
So you again, you didn't join everybody in the sea. You step beyond and hold a different image, holding the light that there is infinite possibilities here, infinite potential. And this is the potential I want here versus whatever else is being conveyed. Okay. So, we have an opportunity. We as a spiritual community, people show up here, and some of y'all at times fall into this, as does Russ fall into this. I come here because I'm hurting. I'm in my fear. And I have to address that fear. And I come to a community because I want a community that sees me for who I am. Not the struggle I'm in, but also not ignoring the struggle that I'm in. That embraces me and loves me and says, what can we do? How can we walk through this? And I think that as a community, we want to be that in the world. We want to embrace more of our light so that we can hold it for our community, but that we can hold it for the city and beyond the city. The point, because what they didn't put in the movie were a couple lines, and I'm going to include those lines for us. And then I'm going to take us straight into, we'll call it meditation, but it's a visualization, okay? So here is Marianne Williamson. Our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, handsome, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking, so that other people won't feel insecure around you. You were born to make manifest the glory of God within us. You and I were born to make manifest the glory of God within us. It is not just in some, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we consciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So as you're comfortable, if you want to close your eyes, please do. And just know that as we're here in sacred space, that the divine is alive in this space. The divine is alive in the molecules that fill this space, but alive within us, within you, within me. We are the divine here now. And that divine is a vibration, a frequency. And as it resonates, it shines. You are shining forth a light, a brilliant light. A light so brilliant that it can be blinding. But it's so bright that it fills every nook and cranny where the darkness wants to remain. But the light extinguishes that darkness. So I want you to hold the image of that light within you, knowing that you're shining. There's a radiance within this physicalness that is you. And just as a light, when you turn on that switch in a room, fills the room, this light is filling you because it is you. And as that luminous presence radiates forth, radiates that light into the world, into this room, and that means that your light radiates and touches the others in this room. You share your light with them. You bathe them in that brilliance. And they feel that comfort that comes from that light, that love that is that light, that joy that cannot be separated from that light. You feel the peace and the ease that come as that light. And now know that that light is not only in this room and in this building, on these grounds, but as is infinite potential, our divine nature, that infinite potential of light shines forth infinitely. It permeates through our city, permeates through our state, our country, our continent, and then beyond. There's nowhere on this planet that that light does not shine. And you are that source. You are the universe expressing as you. And your light is touching lives, blessing lives, being the miracle in lives. And as you remain this light from this moment to the next moment to the next, you step beyond your smallness and you embrace that light to know that you're a miracle for the world. It means you're a miracle in your own life, but you're a miracle for not only humanity, but this planet and this universe. As you bring your attention back to this room, back to this space, opening your eyes if they were closed, and know that no matter what the fear is in your life, you stand beyond that on the sea. You rest in the boat of consciousness that allows you to see the light, to see the divine, and to be active with it in this world. And the world is blessed because of you. And so it is.